But I've heard him referred to as Dan O'Bannon, real hippie guy.
Interesting. I was reading stories about him like hanging out in strip clubs and stuff.
You don't think hippies like strip clubs?
No, I didn't. No, that wasn't. No, yeah.
That was your impression.
Yeah. I didn't get the hippie impression.
Yeah, hippies like titties. They do.
There's a shirt for you.
Hippies love titties. You're on Midnight Local, the podcast from How to Drink, where we just talk about things.
Movies.
Pop culture.
Maybe some video games.
That too. All the things.
The stuff and things.
All of the stuff and the things on Midnight Local.
Let's get to it. Today's movie?
Return of the Living Dead.
It was appropriate for this movie.
Yeah, very flat. It was dirge-like.
Well, before we jump into the movie today, I saw something this week that was wild. I watched that movie Spirited. Do you know what this is?
That's a Christmas thing.
It's the Ryan Reynolds, Will Ferrell Christmas Spectacular.
Is it? And it's also. Is it a Christmas Spectacular or is it a retelling of A Christmas Carol?
Sort of. There's not exactly.
Not exactly.
But it's in there. It took a dark turn at one point too.
Ooh, that's very Christmas Carol-y.
It was. It went even darker than Christmas Carol, I think, though. Like it just
Tell me how dark it went, because I'm a Christmas Carol expert. I know how dark Christmas Carol gets. Go on.
Well, you're right. You're talking about the book, though, like not the movie adaptations.
Yeah, the book is dark.
I don't know if I want to spoil it for people. It's we're probably coming out post holidays here, so if people want to see it. So
we should get this off of our chest. This show is full of spoilers.
Oh, that is true.
I don't think we have to. I think with that ship has sailed.
This movie goes to teenage suicide.
Whoa! I would not see that coming.
Nor did we.
Is there a disclaimer at the top?
There is not.
Holy
I missed the first 2 minutes, so to be fair, so I actually don't know.
Oh, well, it would be in the first 2 minutes.
Well, so
that's where you put a disclaimer.
Stop right before it happens, and it's like, ooh, we should really work. No, everyone I was watching it with who saw it from the beginning didn't seem prepared for what was about to happen.
Is it somehow undone by the end of the film through Christmas magic?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. I hope it doesn't. Yeah, that's good.
But, it was fun. Ryan Reynolds, I find him charming, so it's always good. And Will Ferrell's always a pleasure.
You're gay, so it may not. This is a question, though. So Ryan Reynolds is often trotted out as an example of men misunderstanding the female gaze. Thoughts on that? Unpack it.
No, I don't think so at all. Like, he's famous because men like him?
Yeah, they're basically saying that, like, no. Ryan Reynolds, some women may find him attractive, but, like, the reality is that, like, this is the dude that dudes want to be. This is not the dude that women want to be with.
That's a hard one for me because I am married to a lady, but I don't think that's true.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I'm going to need straight women to chime in. But no, I think he's wonderful.
Straights, get in the comments.
Yeah. People don't ask for their opinion enough.
The straights?
Yes.
Yeah, we're a silenced group for sure. That's a fact.
I don't get that feeling about him at all.
You don't get that? Okay, that's fine. No, I was just curious.
Have you seen anything weird?
Have I seen anything weird? I started watching Andor, which is like the thing at the top of my mind.
Okay. I've heard great things. I
have heard great things, and there are things about it that I love. I'm only 2 episodes in. Here's what I love. Right away, there's a scene that happens. It's not I don't think it's a little spoilery, but I don't give a shit. Cassian Andor, he gets into like a fight. These 2 dudes are trying to run him down, and you find out, oh, this guy knows his way around a fight, and he like throat punches this dude, and it's just like a real quick chop to the throat to like get this guy off his back, and he subdues the other guy, and then they both realize that the first dude is dead.
The throat punched.
Yeah, like he just got killed from one punch, and to me, it's like this is a line in the sand, because if you compare this to like The Mandalorian or something like that, where people are just having superhero battles and not even like breaking a sweat,
yeah,
it's like no, this is real shit. Because like that'll happen. Like you could throat punch somebody and kill them without realizing.
Well, that's the only thing I know about the show is that it's like the regular people that are living in the Star Wars world.
Yeah, I think that's the basic idea, which is cool.
Like these aren't people going off planet. And...
Like, I mean, he gets around, but he doesn't stolen borrowed spaceships and stuff so far. So.
Okay.
My complaint about it, though, is just from like a film thing. Is it like there seems to be no third act on the first 2 episodes at all? They just sort of They just end.
The other thing I've heard
Nothing
about
happens.
it is you have to make it to episode 3.
Yeah, okay. It's like a 90-minute arc.
Yeah.
That makes some sense. Well, we'll make it there.
Yeah.
Maybe even tonight. No, that's it. That's what I've been watching lately. I'm like really hooked on 2 other shows. White Lotus season 2.
Yeah.
You haven't seen that yet.
We're always like, I'm always like 5 months behind you, I think.
That's probably in some ways the other way around.
Yeah, sure. I think that's true. Like we're just catching up on The Boys now.
Oh, okay.
Season 3.
Yeah, do you like that?
I do.
Okay. I didn't know if that was like a guy show or something.
There's moments where I'm
Sure.
like, that's for the guys.
Yeah.
That one's for the guys.
Sure.
But like a fart joke or something that's misplaced, or like the whole Spice Girls rundown. I'm like, because it's funny that his in the first season he gives like a whole breakdown of why the Spice Girls are great.
Yeah, I forgot about
and
that.
I'm like, that's for the guys.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
Because it's funny for a tough dude to like Spice Girls.
And it is.
Kinda.
Yeah, like the joke lands. Like, I don't know. Like, he's very comfortable with his like of the Spice Girls. Anyway, it's not at his expense. No, but I was gonna say White Lotus. All I'll say about that is that show makes me want to crawl out of my skin and then turn around and set my bag of skin on fire. Like the season 2 is really
in a good way.
Well, yeah, because like they're very successfully pulling my strings, but like I also don't need more than small doses of that show. Season 1 was a joy. Season 1 was all about like status. Season 2 seems to be all about sex and like interrelational stuff between people that makes me extremely uncomfortable to watch.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now you pitch me on stuff and I finally reach a point where I'm like, nah, I have to watch it because now I'm curious.
I'm not big on infidelity as a major plot point. Bugs me.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not into that. It fucking pisses me off.
Well, you're a wife guy.
I'm a wife guy. Somebody described us both as wife guys.
I am also a wife guy.
Yeah, that's just 2 wife guys in a cave.
That should be the podcast title. Two wife guys in a cave.
They're going to be making us change it. I mean, that's not a bad idea, but then it does apply a different theme. And then the other thing I was going to say is that we're into is The Peripheral, which is a show on Amazon.
Haven't even heard of that one.
Oh, dude, it's cool. It's written by William Gibson. He's like he invented cyberpunk. He wrote the first cyberpunk novel, Neuromancer, but it's based on a novel of his, and I think he had a lot of input on it. It's very cool. The first 3 episodes are like amazing, and then there's 2 episodes of kind of like it's a little talky for me. It's a little 4 lines in all waiting. You know that expression?
No.
It's how soap operas are written, where there's multiple plot points, but like nothing is happening on any of them. Like it's all the lines are waiting. It kind of felt a little bit like that. Now like things are happening again, so I don't know. I'm very plotty in my show interests. Like I'm very plotty.
We had very different weekends of watching things.
Okay.
Because
my weekend didn't involve watching anything. I was on a bender in the city with my wife for her birthday. But
well, our last week's then, because the only other thing I watched this weekend was Falling for Christmas, the Lindsay Lohan movie that just came out.
I hate your life.
I was with a specific group of people this weekend, and these are the things I watch with that group of people.
Got it.
It's a joy in the group. On your own, not
for
as much.
sure. But we are supposed to talk about predict if you like the movie. or not.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is an easy one.
You know I love this movie.
I know you love this movie.
I bet you liked it because I project myself onto everybody I look at. So you're just like me.
Perfect.
Yeah. Did you like it?
I do. I think it's good.
You think it's good?
I think it's good. I think
but not great.
Well, so I went a little after we watched this the first time, I got very curious about Night of the Living Dead and just sort of the whole history behind these movies.
Oh, cool.
I definitely think a movie like Night of the Living Dead is more geared towards my sensitivities. Like, I loved that movie.
Yeah.
Return of the Living Dead, like, it's good. I'll put it on at Halloween, but like,
yeah.
I don't think we're gonna do the deep dive. I know how deep you've got into this movie.
I just think I think it's one of the greatest movies of all time.
I will say,
I'm right out there on a limb. I think Return of the Living Dead, 1985, directed by. Wait, hold on a second. I think that Return of the Living Dead, 1985, with a runtime of 91 minutes of the genre comedy horror, that estimated $4 million budget, shot in 6 weeks, directed by Dan O'Bannon and written by Dan O'Bannon, is one of the greatest films of all time. That's what I think. I'm right out there on a limb. We had to get those in there somehow. You want to do it a different way?
I don't. I do want to say, like, the 91-minute runtime. It is a perfectly lengthed movie.
Yes.
There's a longer cut out there somewhere. Have you ever seen it?
No. I don't want it.
You don't want it. Yeah, I would agree with you. Yeah. I think it's perfect.
There's like slightly off topic, but on that topic, Aliens. Have you seen, the movie, the James Cameron film?
Yes.
There's a director's cut of it. It was on the Laserdisc in the 90s, and also it aired on TV at some point. But amongst dudes like of my generation, it was widely understood that like director's cut's awesome, bro. The director's cut is terrible, actually. I never had any interest in it. It's just a boring movie it just makes the movie slower and more boring, and it has more exposition that you don't need. But the reason dudes of my generation loved it is because it has this scene where they set up these 2 automatic machine guns and they just like blast 10,000 aliens to pieces. And it's just like totally not necessary at all.
You're usually seeing the director's ego. What couldn't they part with?
And it's funny how it got cut too, which is that like they went there, the distributor or whatever said that it was just, or the studio was like, the movie's just too long. It can't be this long. It's got to be shorter. It's got to be tighter. Like we don't want to, it's too expensive, because in film, right? Like it costs money if the movie's longer.
Sure.
And they couldn't figure out what to cut. And their editor, maybe it was Galen Hurd. It was Galen Hurd, the producer, said, if you take reel 2 out of the movie, the entire reel can come out clean.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And they just took the whole reel out. Maybe it was reel 3, whatever it was.
Sure.
But like,
gone.
Yeah, exactly. For those of you who are digital natives, reels of film are how if you make a 35 millimeter film, a reel of 35 millimeter has 20 minutes or thereabouts of film on it. And so the film in projection would have multiple reels. Sometimes you would stitch them together into a giant platter, but traditionally you'd have 2 projectors and you would switch between them seamlessly. So the entire reel was just cut from the film, 20 minutes.
Wow. That's incredible.
I think so. Anyway, and I brought that up because like I would have bet that the director's cut, the extended cut of Return of the Living Dead, is probably just as useless.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. Yeah. I think that you should make every movie as short as it can possibly be. Agreed. And then release it.
Yes. Generally speaking.
I'm sure we'll find exceptions to that rule.
McKendrick, he had a great book on film that was like sort of going around our film school at the time. He also has the great expression that student films come in 3 varieties: long, too long, and very much too long.
I would have to agree with that. Yes.
Oh yeah, very much so.
Shot in 6 weeks on a $4 million budget.
Nice and tight. 1985, $4 million. Like that's like you could make movies back then.
I was thinking that too. It's like a couple of the movies that we've watched so far. Like we just overthink everything now, or overproduce. Not even overthink. We're not thinking. We're overproducing everything.
It's just they don't make the middle budget movie anymore. And I mean, at $4 million, that's like low budget. This is a low budget movie at $4 million,
For sure.
Middle budget then was like $22 million, $30 million.
Yeah.
But they don't make that either.
They really don't. Yeah.
You can't get that.
Well, it's straight to TV.
To streaming or something. Yeah, I guess. I mean, like, and the other thing too is you talk about a low budget movie. This movie looks fantastic, and that is because, and this is one of the things you lost when we got away from film, I think, is that. I'm sorry, we're off topic. You guys just have to fucking cope. But one of the things you lost is that nowadays, high budget movies, they have the ability to make a digital film that looks phenomenal, right? But like the ultra low budget horror movies, they look still like video. They don't look great a lot of times. There's just like a lot of reasons why that is. But when you shoot on film, you're shooting the same medium that the big boys are using, right? Back in the 80s, a $4 million movie was shot on the same 35 millimeter film that the $30 million movie was shot on.
Right.
The lenses were different and stuff like that, but like it has the same texture, the same feel. And so this movie looks fucking great for a low budget movie. And I don't think there's a whole lot of real low budget movies that look that good anymore. I think that's
that's for sure.
Particularly in horror.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right.
Return of the Living Dead. Meredith, you want to do the synopsis? I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Take me through it.
Okay.
Now.
Return of the Living Dead is, so you've got a warehouse full of odd things, and we get down to a creepy looking canister, and it gets kicked. You get smoke in the air, and fun ensues. The dead start to come alive. They're really fucking crazy in this movie because they run and they're here to eat your brains, which was new. We've got our two main characters, Frank and Freddie, and they have breathed in this smoke, and now they are on the path to being the living dead themselves, which really ties you in with the other zombies in this movie. Craziness ensues, and pretty much it's just an all-out zombie brawl from there.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good synopsis.
All right, Greg.
Oh, you want my synopsis?
I want your 2 minute. This is your movie, man.
Okay, my synopsis is this. Return of the Living Dead is a spiritual sequel to the Night of the Living Dead. It makes reference to Night of the Living Dead by virtue of saying that Night of the Living Dead is a true story, but that the movie was the fictionalized telling of those events. Here we see the exact same, according to this film, event occurring from the same chemicals that caused it to happen in the last time. And the zombies are truly unstoppable. Every piece of them continues to live forever, and they can't be stopped unless you burn them to pieces for gone good. And it's just a really great zombie horror comedy where everything just gets worse and worse and worse, and there's no salvation in sight.
Left out the military
No, well, that's
movie.
true. We did leave out the military aspect, but I also feel like that's it's all right. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. I was gonna say that I feel like that's just sort of set dressing, but it's really not actually, because this movie is very much about, or at the not I was not to say subtext at all, but like the text of this movie is about the U.S. military being maybe a force for evil.
Yeah. I think like the more you read any commentary from the directors, the writers, that was their direct intention.
Yeah. The Army's the bad guys.
Yeah.
They created this chemical whose name I forget. It's an exfoliant designed to destroy marijuana crops. More on that in a moment. And it didn't work. It made dead things come back to life. And they bottled it all up and stored it somewhere because they didn't know what else to do with it. Actually, they lost it.
They lost it. That's a whole
typical Army, he
yeah.
says.
The whole first point of the movie is he can't retire until this is found.
Yeah. The colonel is stuck monitoring this red phone 24 hours a day because they lost 8 canisters of trioxin 242 or whatever it is.
He's a total dick to his perfectly nice wife about it.
Yes, he is. But they both seem kind of like dicks. I don't know.
She's just making the guy dinner. She made him his favorite dish. I had that for lunch. He's a dick.
I guess that's true.
But well, why not get into it? Like the chemical and what it represents.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, it's funny because the Wikipedia doesn't really get into this. I think that the Wikipedia says that it was a comparison to Agent Orange. Maybe. I actually think because they specifically reference it being used on marijuana crops, I think that it was a reference to paraquat, which was a thing that was 74, 73. It was this chemical that they were developed to defoliate marijuana crops. They were going to spray them on fields in Mexico. The Army was just going to fly down and spray this shit. And they did, to poison or otherwise destroy marijuana as part of the drug war. And there was a big scare about the paraquat.
Yeah.
SNL did sketches on it.
Yeah, you said your dad had a story about it.
Yeah. So my dad was a big stoner, and he also an enterprising fella, I guess. He had this idea that the paraquat scare. What can I do here? So he went up to Edison Scientific, I think it was, or Edmonton Scientific. It's Edison Scientific. It's in Edison, New Jersey. It used to be, and he got all the equipment he needed to make like little paraquat testing kits to sell to his friends. So he made like 50 or 100 paraquat testing kits, but he didn't sell a single one. Nobody bought them.
Nobody was as scared about it as you wanted them to be.
The scare lasted like 8 months and it was over. But it's crazy like what a cultural thing it was, because like in those 8 months there was all these news articles. Yeah. There was SNL did sketches on it, and like since then it does show up in more current stuff, like in The Big Lebowski. He refers to somebody as a human paraquat.
Yeah. I think like with chemicals and things like this, like, it's left vague enough that you can assign it to whatever your personal connection is, or your fear is, or what's on your mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I guess like what I was reading is that the Darrow company is like purposefully supposed to sound like the Dow company.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Dow, yeah.
Which is why people made the Agent Orange connection.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, Dan O'Bannon, the writer director here, he was like my understanding is he's kind of a big hippie. That's like his. I don't know much. I've never met the man. And I won't now. He's dead.
Yeah, he's dead.
But I've heard him referred to as Dan O'Bannon, real hippie guy.
Interesting. I was reading stories about him like hanging out in strip clubs and stuff.
You don't think hippies like strip clubs?
No, I didn't know. That wasn't yeah.
That was your impression.
Yeah. I didn't get the hippie impression.
Yeah. Hippies like titties. They do.
There's a shirt for you.
Hippies love titties. The thing I wanted to talk about is like why this movie is called Return of the Living Dead, which I find this to be fascinating. Okay, so it's a spiritual sequel to Night of the Living Dead.
Explain when you're saying spiritual sequel.
Well, because like Night of the Living Dead has a direct sequel, which was directed by George Romero, and that is Dawn of the Dead. So, and it's like literally just like following this idea of the night, the dawn, and then day of the dead, which is the original trilogy. And then he made a bunch of other movies like City of the Dead and all these other of the Dead movies.
Got it.
And those all follow the events in Night of the Living Dead kick off the subsequent storylines in the rest of those movies. Like they happen in the same universe. Return of the Living Dead happens like in a parallel universe where the film Night of the Living Dead was made by somebody based on a real event that actually happened, but the army made him change the details so that it wouldn't appear about that real event.
I read an interesting piece of trivia about Frank when he's retelling this story.
Okay.
Because I forget the exact dates, but he gets his dates all wrong in his retelling, but it was purposeful because they're trying to make him an unreliable narrator.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Deep dive.
That is cool. I mean, and that's something I want to talk about too, is that like the script is unbelievably tight, but we'll come to that. And so so what happened though is, why is this movie a spiritual successor? I love this. So it was originally written and produced by John A. Russo, who was the co-writer with George Romero of Night of the Living Dead. Him and George Romero had a writing partnership that dissolved, and in the dissolution of that partnership, they split the title. So Russo got to keep Living Dead, right? And Romero got to keep the Night of.
It's of the Dead is what he kept.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Return of the Living Dead, Night of the Living Dead.
No, but Romero kept of the Dead.
Well, that wasn't part of the original title, though. He couldn't have kept that.
That's what it says so they wrote about this in that book. Like, what are the Romero movies that go on beyond this then?
Night of the Living Dead.
Uh-huh.
Day of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, of the Dead. That's right. Yeah.
But that's not Night of the Living Dead is not of the dead.
Yeah. Well, so what I read that the story was that they didn't have the copyright right. So they were both allowed to use whatever they wanted.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's just how they did that.
They sorted it out themselves.
They changed the name at some point in the filmmaking process.
Oh, maybe.
And they never submitted the proper paperwork for the copyright for the new name.
Oh, weird.
So when they split, it was like they could do whatever they wanted with it, and this is what they agreed upon.
Copyright worked a little differently back in the 60s too, I think.
Yeah.
Now if you make it, it's copywritten. So Russo got to make his blank of the Living Dead series. Romero got to get his Time of the Dead series based off of that. So they separated the name into two separate parts and went their separate ways. So Return of the Living Dead has a whole series attached to it. I don't know. I just kind of think that's really, really funny. And so what ended up happening too is that Russo wrote this movie, and then he got Dan O'Bannon to direct it. Dan O'Bannon wrote Alien. Like, he's a very...
I didn't realize that. So I got into a whole twist up about who Dan O'Bannon was and like who they were between the three of them.
Right.
And so I thought that Dan O'Bannon was part of that original group. But no, he's not. Yeah, he just was chosen to direct this movie, and Russo wrote it.
He may... I mean, it's possible he was in their like circle of friends and had some input on it, but he doesn't get a credit in it. So.
Well, he's not a part of that rift.
Right. No.
Yeah. So
he was hired to direct it, and when he came in to direct it, he looked at the script that Russo said and said, I have to rewrite all of this, change the tone so that it doesn't feel like a George Romero movie. And what a fucking brilliant move that was, right? Like, that makes the movie work. Dan O'Bannon could write. Like, he wrote Alien. Like I said, like, the script is phenomenal script. So.
Yeah, I did not realize he co-created that series.
Yeah, he's got credits on every single Alien movie because like he created all the characters and stuff.
And Total Recall, that was the other one that I read that he did.
Oh, wow. Total Recall, I can see that. I would also, but Total Recall, okay. Total Recall he wrote, but it's a Verhoeven film. That makes perfect sense because I was like, it feels like Verhoeven. Yeah, okay. That's awesome. I didn't realize he did Total Recall.
Yeah.
Love that movie. Doesn't really hold up. Still love it. But anyway, so that's how you end up with this movie being what it is. And one of the Dan O'Bannon signatures is he also directed and wrote this movie called Dark Star. I've never seen it, but a lot of people cite it as being like super influential. It's how he got the job for Alien. And in it, there's like a space cruiser that's filled with nuclear bombs, but like all of the space pilots call them Easter eggs.
Okay.
And in Return of the Living Dead, the Army refers to the barrels of dioxin 2,4 whatever, trioxin, as being Easter eggs.
Is that where that term comes from?
That's where, it came from Dark Star.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Like we all are using it for every little thing now.
Yeah, well, it's just like his signature. Dan O'Bannon kept using it.
Yeah, like hidden, like Easter eggs. For DVD extras always had Easter eggs. That was a big
thing.
thing.
No. I don't think it's why.
No.
That's a good question. Maybe. I didn't think about that. Maybe it is where you mean like the Easter egg?
Yeah, like hidden extras and things like that.
Oh, I don't know. I think it's just Dan O'Bannon's signature to refer to the dangerous things as Easter eggs. I think that in Alien, the original script, if I'm not mistaken, one of the characters refers to them as an Easter egg, the eggs that they found.
I see. I wonder. We'll have to find out.
Look that up. Can't look it up right now because we're in the middle of a show.
So one of the things that I find most interesting about this movie is actually how the living dead are portrayed. Like I find them utterly terrifying.
They are. Like
more than anything else, because first of all, you can't kill them. And I've sat and thought like long and hard about how to, even like you say, throw them in the incinerator, but all that does is release the smoke to create more. Yep. Every way you try and kill these creatures, you're just creating a bigger problem for yourself.
Throw them in acid and then take the goop and put it into a barrel, which is kind of
never open it again.
That's kind of where the movie starts.
Yes, exactly. And then someone stumbles across it. You still can't completely dispose of this thing.
Maybe to some extent, it's like what people thought nuclear waste was like at one time.
Sure.
Right? Because like nuclear waste isn't. People are going to be pissed off my comments here, but like it's not actually as big a deal as we were told it was. It's like much more manageable than I was raised to believe.
I know very little about nuclear waste.
I know enough to know that it's more manageable than you think. It's also a lot smaller than you think. It's not like there's like barrels and barrels and barrels of bad water. Like it's like this, It's like a little box.
Store it somewhere
from like running a reactor for years and
years. Yeah,
but
like imagine a room full of barrels with these bodies in them, just like decomposing in acid. So there's that, but there's also like because they make them sentient.
Oh yeah.
And then when they nail that woman down or they tie her down and they interview her, like there is a stark shift for me at that moment because they, like, yes, they're still trying to kill you. They are the problem. You have to kill them, but like. I'm sympathetic to this zombie and I've never experienced that in another zombie movie. They're always sort of this existential large group that is ever coming. And she's like, we are in severe pain. And unfortunately for you, the only way to cure this pain is to eat your brain.
Gotta eat your brain.
And it's like, well, fuck, do I have more right to survive than this creature does? Like now you're in a battle for.
The answer is yes. I mean, you're you, so the answer is yes.
Yeah, you're and like you're not motivated to kill in order to survive. Well, that's not necessarily true.
Well, like what you said though is true though, like about other zombie movies, like in Night of the Living Dead, and they think that in this film too, like that we can just shoot them in the head, that stops them because in Night of the Living Dead, that's what happens, and we'd established that Night of the Living Dead is the fictionalized retelling of true events. Turns out, no.
Right.
You could cut these things into pieces and their hands still keep coming for you. Like they are utterly unstoppable in a way that no other zombie movie even portrays zombies.
No, you get them in the head. You get skilled at getting things in the head and you got a fighting chance. Like there's no fighting chance here.
No fighting.
Yeah. And it's, and then on top of it, they give you Frank and Freddy, who you like, who are your main characters, and now they're becoming these creatures.
Yes.
So that's, I think, more than that woman, that's what makes you sympathetic to them. Is like,
yes,
well, shit, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, exactly. I think that one of the things that movie does so well, it's a horror comedy. I personally think that the movie is more horrifying because of its comedic overtones.
I struggle to call it a comedy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But upon second watching of the movie, I was really looking for what is comedy here. And like, not even in the classical sense of comedy.
Send more cops.
It's a tragedy. I guess, yeah, or yeah, right.
There's like a lot of little moments like that. Like a lot of the stuff too that like the teens are like, I don't know, like the scene when Trash is like sitting on that tombstone. I love that scene. You ever think about being killed? No, I try not to think about that stuff. I do all the time. That's pretty weird. You shouldn't do that. Like, that's hilarious.
Yes, it is. It's funny, but like, did you think that was funny as a kid when you were watching it? Well,
all right. So we get into that now. I saw this movie when I was much, much, much too young. My grandparents were babysitting us. I was 7, 8 years old. We went to our local video store. It was called Blue Video. It's been out of business for about 40 years. No, not 40, but it's been out of business about 30 years now. So if anybody knows Blue Video, you have some pretty strong idea of where I grew up. And we got to pick out 2 movies or a couple of movies. I don't know what my sister picked out. I saw this cover and said, Return of the Living Dead. Yeah, I'm picking out that. My grandfather picked out My Left Foot. And we went home and we watched movies. We watched this. To my grandparents' credit, they never decided we had to turn it off. So we got to see this movie. But yeah, when I was 7,
to their credit,
they didn't back away. They stared it straight down and said, "We're getting through this, sucker." No, every single beat of this movie was 100% real and terrifying to me. And I don't, to the extent that I thought about that conversation at all, no, I didn't think it was funny at all then. Now I think, of course, it's hilarious.
Hilarious, yeah.
Of course, that scene also precedes our big gratuitous boobs scene.
Right.
Which in of itself is funny because of the way it's shot. Like,
right.
It's so staged. Like there's a proscenium,
Do you think that's a nod to I was shocked to see like a topless woman in the movie in the 60s. And
in 68?
Night of the Living Dead. She's one of the zombies.
Oh wow!
Looks like she walked out of the shower or something.
Oh wow! I didn't.
So I was wondering after that if this scene, if it was like it had to be there because that was probably a huge deal in the 60s. I would have thought.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, probably it was a bigger deal. Not like at that. I don't think in like the kind of underground cinema that Night of the Living Dead was, but yeah, I mean you're right. I never thought about that, but I think it was just there because boobs.
Well, and that's I think from what I've read about Dan O'Bannon, he would agree with you.
He likes the strippers.
He does. Well, that
hippies love titties.
He just thought. I mean, it was a movie that I made that I thought boys would go see. I didn't think any girls would go see it, so I had to have a naked girl in there. And then I went to the movie theater. All these girls were there. I was like, man, I should have had Freddie be naked too. That was sort of what he said about it.
That's brilliant. That's probably true. Freddie would have put him in the seats. I think, or what was the other guy? No, not Trash. That's Scuzz, the dude in the leather.
Oh, I've not seen enough to know their names.
I think his name is
the
Scuzz.
side characters. Yeah,
the guy is always like, think this is a costume? It's a way of life, man.
Oh, that's right. Oh, the guy with the chain going from his ear to his mouth. Yeah.
Not a fucking costume I put on. I do this for you.
I know. He says some line at some point about how it's like how he does so much for them, and I'm like, what is the backstory here with these kids?
Well, I thought it was implied pretty strongly that he was the only one with a job.
And he just drives them around.
Yeah, like he's just the friend with the car who has to gas up the car, who has a job, and everybody else was just sort of like, is like, you guys have any money for gas? Like, no. He's like, you never have money for gas. Like, I don't know. I think he is slightly put upon. I don't think that's without merit.
Yeah, that character has a lot going on, and you don't really ever get the full story there.
No, yeah. The other thing too is like, I know some punk people. I don't, like punks, for good or ill, they get into fights. People want to beat them up. And generally speaking, one of them is better at that than the rest of the crew.
Sure.
So it might be Scuzz.
He takes all the hits for him.
Yeah, exactly. That might be true. Yeah, so topless scene in the movie. Obviously, I was transfixed as a young man. My grandmother chimes in, dead silence. My grandfather's happily watching her dancing. My grandmother's like, Gregory. I'm trying to do her voice now. I can't really. She was like, back when I was the burlesque. You know, what you think you're seeing, you're not seeing there. Yeah, because we knew what we were doing. We'd have, you know, they all thought they were seeing something they didn't see. We had our tricks. So I don't know why I think you're just bringing that up as like a curious fact, or maybe to like
she just wanted to feel better about what you were watching. Like this is not happening.
I don't think she felt bad about it at all.
Yeah.
Again, my grandmother, burlesque. Like,
sure, yeah.
I think she just wanted
She's really telling you tricks of the trade.
I think that it was more just like, you think this is hot. It's not hot. You're not seeing what you think you're seeing, Greg. That's what I think it is. Get that out of your head. This is just theater.
It's not all that glamorous.
It's not sexy. It's theater work, baby. I think that's what it was.
Okay.
But yeah, although you have to imagine it with a Missouri accent, because I'm for some reason unable to conjure that up at the moment.
I don't have one. Missouri.
Yeah.
Missouri. That's all I know.
I usually
Missouri?
I can usually do her voice, but right now I can't. So it's a
yeah,
shame.
you usually do.
I do have a good voice for her. Yeah, it's like, let me try.
Where'd it go, Greg?
I don't know. You know, they come and go sometimes. That's why I can't be a voice actor. I can't just like call them up.
That is a true talent.
Yeah.
If ever I'm trying to call up a voice, it is something completely other than the thing I am intending.
I was asking my buddy Ari Rubin about that, because he's a voice actor, and I was like, do you have like tricks or like a process that you note down to like bring the voice forth? Like, I do this, I put my tongue there. He's like, no, you just have to remember. Like, there's no way to do that.
It's memorization.
And probably that makes sense. And also, if you had the recording, like you can check back, like, oh yeah, okay, I remember what I was doing there.
Okay, yeah. Or
that
like, well, I know for people who do like entire films in other dialects, they'll just do dialect coaching.
Oh, for sure.
Over and over and over again. But
cartoon voices aren't dialects, though. You might have to do like all
some of
kinds
them might
voices. Yeah, sure, they might be.
I wonder if there's anything like that though, where it's like, this is how I get into, right, this is how I position my mouth to get into this character.
So yeah, and then the nude scene too. It was supposed to be full frontal nudity, and I love this. In I forget do you know where the objection came from over that? Because I don't.
Russo
remember.
was visiting set. I'm pretty and was like appalled. And so it's actually, they took her up, they shaved her first.
Nice.
Which she says was the only degrading part of the process.
Why couldn't she do it herself?
Maybe she did do it herself. They described it like a producer did it. I don't believe that that's true. I hope not. I hope that's not true.
That's awful.
And then that still was too. He said that was even
Leanna
worse.
Quigley, by the way.
Right, Leanna Quigley. Or not Leanna, Linnea Quigley.
Linnea Quigley.
It's my middle name is Linnea, and I've never, like, my cousin's the only other Linnea I've ever known.
Oh, wow.
Until now.
My grandmother's first name was Lavena. How many Lavenas do you know?
Just your grandmother.
That's a weird one.
Anyway, I guess that made it worse because now you could see everything.
So wait. Russo's first problem was, we can't have Bush in this movie.
I think it was Russo. It was just right.
No Bush. Shave it down.
Well, and I guess Leanna Quigley has some quote, Linnea. It's my own name, and I keep calling her Leanna now.
That's not good.
Linnea Quigley has a quote somewhere where she like basically says is like, once there's pubic hair, it's no fun anymore. It's like it's lost its fun. Nudity is fun, but when there's pubic hair, it stops being fun. Was essentially the essence of her quote.
That's a weird quote.
Apparently, she did a lot of nudity in her career.
Well, yeah,
it was sort of her thing.
Queen, but like, I mean, until very, very recently, I can't remember ever there not being pubic hair, ever there being anything but pubic hair. I don't even think I can't think of a movie. Can you think of a movie that's not porn that has a pubic hairless lady naked in the movie?
Not off the top of my head.
No, yeah. I mean, like, that would be novel, you know, we're seeing the full vulva here. I don't know, like I said.
A short bus.
Oh, well, that's a porno, right?
Kinda.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
I mean, it is, but.
Okay. Well, regardless, interesting quote from Miss Linnea. Anyway, so yeah, it was too much shaved. So now that they've shaved her, they ended up creating like a latex prosthetic. Yeah. To just render her into a Barbie doll.
Yes, yes.
Which is even weirder. Okay.
Yes, it is. It's even weirder. It's Rachel and I have a constant like thing going about this, but in the remade version of The Lion King, they just in the CG version, the live action version of The Lion King, they're all sitting around, but there's no suggestion there. They're not at all anatomically correct.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it was incredibly weird to me throughout the film. It was so distracting to me. She has the complete opposite point of view. No even like shadow of fur, nothing. Just like Barbie doll lions. Barbie doll lions.
What does Rachel think about that?
She thinks it would be insane to put anything there.
I don't think
she might be right.
I don't think
like,
either of you are wrong.
Yeah, it's just the thing we go back and
You have to hold two. The sign of maturity, I think, is the ability to hold two diametrically opposing thoughts in your head at the same time and recognize that both of them might be true.
It's an unsolvable problem.
Yeah, I agree.
I guess maybe, yeah, I don't know, vote Barbie doll lion better.
Probably. I mean, I also don't know that, like, they have big balls.
See, we don't have to go all the way to that. I'm just like, put some fur on them so that it looks covered or something. I don't know.
Wait, the lion is covered in fur.
It's a weird thing to have to do for a reanimated animated movie.
Have you remember the Cats movie that came out with Taylor Swift? Have you seen the thing where somebody put the buttholes on them?
Yes. So Cats was the last movie I saw before the pandemic started, and that was haunting me until we were able to go back to theaters. It was painful.
Yeah, so we get the very weird nudity scene. First movie, by the way. This is the first movie where zombies definitively eat brains.
They eat brains. It was
invented that.
And the running was a big deal too.
Yeah, the running and the eating brains, both very big deals in this movie.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Fast zombies eat brains. Talking.
Like sentences too.
Yeah. One of the most quoted things in this movie is send more paramedics.
Yes.
Or send more cops. And I think a lot of people don't know that that's where that comes from. Actually, it's funny too. I was talking about you ever think about being killed line, and somebody brought up like, oh wow, that's like where this DJ or whatever got that line from. Like, it's been sampled and stuff like that. It's an iconic film. This is a very serious cultural touchstone.
It's amazing when you find things like that in the wild. Like for years, there was a Rufus Wainwright song that opens with a line from Grey Gardens. Have you ever seen Grey Gardens? Yeah, it's hard to keep the line between the future and the past, or whatever the line is. Yeah. And the first time I saw that movie, as in college, I was like, mind blown.
So one of the things about this movie too that I love, that I don't think gets enough credit for it, the acting.
Right. Yes.
I think that the cast fucking kills it in this movie.
So Dan O'Bannon was going to play Frank.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
And what's the actor's name who plays Frank?
The actor who plays Frank, their name is James Karen.
So I guess James Karen came in and blew them away in the audition, and Dan O'Bannon, for a director to say, you know what, I'll step aside and not act in my own movie. That had to be a killer audition.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, he probably plays a zombie or something in one scene.
I don't know if he has a cameo.
I would be shocked.
If he doesn't.
That's like zombie rules. You got to be a cameo zombie.
Sure.
But I love the acting in this movie. I really feel like the tone. You know what it is? I think I was trying to figure out what it is I love about it. There's no big acty moments in this movie.
No giant monologues. No. Yeah.
Not really. Like, and it never feels like, man, I think that the biggest problem with acting is overacting. There's a lot of overacting out there, and it just ruins my suspension of disbelief, right? It pulls me right out. This movie doesn't have that.
Yeah.
Every performance feels really grounded, very true to life, maybe slightly heightened, like the character is, but there's nobody in this movie that feels like false or like they don't exist in a real world. I don't know. It really sells it for me. I believe every beat of it.
Yeah, part of that's in the writing too. I thought like the first time I watched this movie, what really struck me is Frank's relationship with his wife, which is such a and it's never given to you, but it is there all the way so through. Strongly. Yeah,
all the way through, and it's so good. And that brings me to my other point, which is the thing talking about the writing. This is one of the tightest scripts I've ever seen in my life. I'm not like one of those Chekhov's gun people. It drives me crazy that there's like this modern discourse now where people get online and complain about like this plot line didn't even pay off and that foreshadowing went nowhere. Well, it wasn't foreshadowing then, and they're just like, if you put a gun on the mantelpiece in Act 1, it better go off in Act 3. I hate that because like life does not work that way.
Right.
I like a plot that's really messy and where like things are unsatisfying. Like shit just happens, There's not a reason for it. Narratively even, there's not a reason for everything.
But if your characters are written as characters and not just devices for things to happen, then those things happen naturally.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not one to love that kind of a tight script, but this movie is that. And it's hard to not just be impressed by how tight this script is. Not a single line of dialogue does not pay off in some way, doesn't connect to something down the road. Like every single thing, you know, even Frank, when we're watching Ernie run the, specifically, that's the perfect example. And you, when we watched it together, you were like, what a jackass this guy is.
If just that line rubbed me the wrong way.
I know. Frank is watching Ernie run the crematorium, and Frank kind of elbows Freddie and says, "What are the money? This guy's some big favor. I could run that thing." And later in the movie, we get that paid off when Frank, realizing his future is so grim that he's about to become a mindless zombie, crawls into the crematorium and runs it himself.
I'm trying to put my finger exactly on how to say this, but this is like a movie where it's like there's so much underdevelopment. Like, no, that's way the wrong way because it sounds like underdevelopment. But like there's so much story development
that's not in the script.
But it creates like I use this phrase way too much, but the like piano in a jazz band, right?
Yep.
There's just this like idea that there's more there. And actually Don Calfa or Ernie's characters, an example that you pointed out that I've read a little bit more about and I find incredibly interesting.
This movie is like an iceberg.
Yeah.
You only see a tip of it, but they did so much development to support that little tip.
There you go. You explained exactly what I was trying to get out of my mouth.
I know what you're getting at. Yeah. There's a huge undercurrent. There's a lot, you know, and there's subtext too, right? Like there is, well, this is actually text. It's just not spoken out loud. Subtext would be like, let's put this one to rest. Let's bury this hatchet. Subtext is not a part of the movie that wasn't said out loud. Subtext is the thing that the movie is about that isn't in the movie at all.
Okay.
You know, like the subtext for The Day the Earth Stood Still is about Jesus.
Okay, got it.
You know, like that's what that movie's really about.
So we're talking more about like Easter eggs.
Easter eggs. Back to Easter eggs. Hippies love titties. I had to whisper that one slightly because my kids are now apparently somewhere within earshot. No, but so like Ernie, right? He's the guy who runs the crematorium. That's his job. He's the mortuary guy. And it's subtle. And on my first 30 watchings of this movie, I didn't catch it. And when I read about it, I was like, oh, whoa. And then you watch the movie and you realize he's got this weird posters up that like might be written in German behind him. And his choice of gun is an old Luger. And he's listening to like big brass marching band music in his headphones while he's working. Ernie is a World War II Nazi in hiding, living under a new identity, trying to just get on with his life. And there's supposed to be this whole like internal work happening with him where when they finally get this zombie on the table and they interview her and she talks about the pain of decay, where he suddenly starts thinking about all of the people whom he has consigned personally into the pain of decay, and also thinks about all the people he's embalms and how that must feel for them and stuff like that.
Right.
But then also where the movie ends for him and what is that character's name? I always forget her name. Freddie's girlfriend.
Freddie, Tina.
So the movie ends for Ernie and Tina hiding in the attic, you know, hoping that the monster on the other side doesn't find them, doesn't break their way in. And where does Ernie's Luger come in play? And I loved when we watched this together and you were like, well, that's useless. His gun.
Oh, right.
And
yeah.
I was like, no, it's not. Wait till you see.
Zombies. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the movie ends with him essentially killing Tina to put her out of her misery.
They don't show you. He looks at the gun.
Freeze frame.
Yeah, right. It goes to a freeze frame.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, the military is about to blow up the entire area. So whichever happens first happens.
Yeah. Well, I think the freeze frame is supposed to be the nuclear flash.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, but like he's pulling the trigger.
Right.
He has decided, he's resolved to go this route when fate rips that opportunity from his hands. And yeah, ultimately the movie ends when somebody finally, they have no other options. They call the army, tell them they found the Easter eggs, and the army responds by nuking the whole town.
And which just results in releasing more of this gas into the air and probably setting up the sequel.
No, I think it'll be fine. The fires are being put out by the rain. I think that should be no issue at all there, sir.
Yes, the sequel is just like a nice, calm comedy about, people moving on with their lives after a weird zombie attack.
One of the final lines is that the colonel who ordered the nuke attack is replying to his superior commander that, like, all the fires in the city are being extinguished by the rain. So, I mean, collateral damage is pretty minimal. But we've already seen at this point that the rain spreads it.
Yes,
makes
we
it worse.
know better in that beautiful 3-shot sequence that is.
Ooh, what a great shot. Oh, my God. Thank you. From the smoke coming from the crematorium.
It's not even, but it's the body in the fire. Then you follow the smoke up. Then you pan down. Then you see the lightning come. Then you pan down to the ground.
And we go down through the ground. We follow the trickles of water through the earth until it finally gets to a grave. Oh, my God.
You see some smoke going through. So you just kind of know these things are combining. It's just
really cool.
Yeah. There's another movie that had a sequence like this. And I was like, I love a movie that tells a full story in 3 shots.
I love it. That's what
it's a magical thing that happens.
So for me, bad dialogue and badly delivered dialogue is the bane of all film. And the less your actors talk, probably the better. Probably the better. Not always, but probably the better.
We will find. It will come across a case where that's not true. But
you'll find many cases where that's not true. I'm just saying that, like, generally it's better. Okay? People are freaking out right now. And the reason is that because then it makes the story visual. You start telling visual.
Right.
That sequence is unbelievably pure visual storytelling where you know exactly what's going on. How much more effective is that than somebody having to say, where are they coming from? It must have gotten into the rain.
Right. It must have evaporated into the sky and then the rain put it into the ground. Yeah, exactly.
Awful. You have to have the stupid scientist talk and, like, it feels like a 1950s B movie then, like, where did the mant come from? Radiation. Radiation made the mant. It's
so much more fulfilling to put things together as an audience member too.
Better.
Because you're just like, I'm in it. I'm with this movie. I got it. We're together.
Yeah, exactly. And also what I want to point out too is, like, that $4 million point. You're very lucky that this movie isn't taped theater.
Yeah.
Like, that it's not just a bunch of talking heads, but, like, you actually get these big, like, that's a big effect to put that shot together. And it's seamless. It's multiple shots, but, like, it feels like one shot. And you got to put the camera down through the dirt, like, down into the earth and stuff like that. Like, that is, that's a big, I mean, obviously the zombie effects are all over the place too, but, like, cheap zombie effects are a thing that low budget independent filmmakers have. I'm not as impressed by that, right?
Right.
Like, we know that, right?
Well, except for the one glaring omission, the thing that is a huge thing about this movie that we haven't discussed yet.
What's that?
Tarman.
Thank you about Tarman.
Yeah,
Tarman.
we can't move on before talking about Tarman.
And Tarman is iconic. The guy's movements. I always thought it was like some kind of a puppet. There is, like, puppeteer is credited in the movie, but I think that's for slab woman.
I think there's some wider shots where it is a human moving.
I think it's always a human. I think that the puppeteer is slab the torso on the slab that they interview.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's a puppet.
Spine.
And the face is a puppet too.
Sure,
it's not a real woman's face. But the Tarman is like a dude in a costume who has just, like, the most unbelievably fluid, weird movements.
Yeah.
And that's, like, it runs so counter to zombie lore.
Yeah.
Like, he looks like he's made of jelly.
So I guess that the ooze that they used for Tarman, it was also used in the Blob. It was developed for the Blob.
Oh, no shit.
To create, and then also slime in help me out, Ghostbusters too.
Oh. Okay.
So this is like a known ooze thing. And then I guess
I would have just thought it was KY.
No, it's like there's a whole thing written about what this stuff is and how the special effect is created. I doubt I wrote it down. But, like, it is a thing. It is a horror trope that is used over and over again. I guess they would continue to, like, hit it with heat guns to melt it to make it look more liquidy.
Oh, wow. That's wild.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that.
Well, and then I guess that opening shot, famously the glass cracks in this opening shot.
Oh, of the barrel.
Yeah. And I guess that's because they were shooting heat through it so that the stuff was melting away from the face. and the heat caused the glass to crack, and it was like one of those bloopers that's like one of the best
you're talking about
mistakes.
the melt.
Yes.
The face melt. I'm just talking about the way he moves. Is that the same stuff was the face melt?
I think they put it all over him throughout the stuff.
I think that the thing that this movie, and I think we touched on it a little bit before, for me, this movie is just so despairing. It is a bleak, desperately bleak black hole of a movie. I don't know. I love it. It's a very depressing film in a lot of ways, with a smile, with like a kind of gallows humor.
It doesn't let you off the hook at any point.
No,
like you were stuck in this situation. There's no, where I think I wrote down at some point, like, the movie, what it makes it scarier than Night of the Living Dead is it is bold enough to give you no hope.
None. Night of the Living Dead, like, they survive. Somebody survives. Like, the situation resolves.
They are handling it at the end of that movie.
Yeah.
Tragically,
exactly.
But handling it.
Right, exactly. Like, there is hope that we'll get through this.
Right.
Return of the Living Dead sets it up as like, nope, no, you will not. This is the end of all days right here.
And we've just spread this out so much further.
Yeah, nothing you can do will stop them.
Yeah.
Just the way the zombies keep coming after you. I mean, it's inevitability.
Right. Like, every time the cop cars pull up, yes, it's funny that they get swarmed immediately, but it's also just like, you don't even have a second of a hero getting out of the car, getting a little close. No. Maybe he's going to help them out. No, it is, you never even see those characters. They're just swarmed.
And the crowds of zombies just keep getting bigger and bigger
and
bigger. Actually, the police think that it's rioting. They don't know what's going on.
Right.
Because they're flying overhead in helicopters. Like, all this rioting that's going on downtown. What's going on? And the cops get overwhelmed completely in that scene.
Yeah.
Oh, you were thinking about that. Thought you were talking about the send more cops scene.
No, yeah, but whenever they arrive, like, with the exception of the first paramedics get killed a little bit more slowly, but not much. It is just like overwhelming and quick.
God, I love this movie, Meredith. What are you got some closing thoughts on this one?
Every time I talk about it, I think this is going to be true of most movies as we like continue to get deeper into this podcast. Like, it's like a song. Like, the more I hear it, the more I watch it, the more I talk about it, the more I like it. There's so much to keep digging into here, to keep unpacking. And I can understand why, as someone who's lived with this movie for most of your life, like, you've continued to enjoy it, find new things in it. I think it's a wonderful film. It's
a beautiful film. It's one of the great films. There's not a lot of movies that I watch more than once. Blade Runner and Return of the Living Dead. That's about it. Alien.
We're gonna find some more. We'll keep a tally. What has Greg seen more than once?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what's my repeat viewing? I mean, I guess for this show I'll have to watch a lot of things more than once, but like, this is a movie that I come back to every year, maybe a few times a year.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of movies that like I really love the way I love this movie. It's
a cozy blanket.
It's a cozy, goopy, brain-eating blanket.
It tracks. I like it.
Well, that's it for Midnight Local. You've been hanging out with
Meredith over here
and Greg from How to Drink. We'll see you next time on another edition of Midnight Local. Until then, we want to really give a huge thanks to our producer, Annie Villalobos, Heather Vaughn, the artist who created all of our artwork, Studio 71, who help us distribute and produce this whole crazy thing.
Yeah.
And we don't have any music yet, but when we do, we'll tell you who that is.
Yeah, the list will grow. But also, if you're looking for us, you can find us over on YouTube, as we've said with the show How to Drink, which has been going on for 7+ years. So there's plenty to go through.
Yeah, you can watch How to Drink over there, but you can also be watching and hearing this podcast on YouTube at youtube.com/Midnight Local. You could be listening and watching this podcast live in my 3-camera studio at Midnight Local at youtube.com/Midnight Local. Also, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify,
wherever you get your podcasts.
Wherever you get your podcasts from.
Isn't that like a rite of passage?
You have to say that.
Find us wherever you get your podcasts.
We should record like a Gregorian chant of it that we can just push the button.
Yeah.
Wherever you get podcasts from. Good night. Sleep tight. Don't let the zombies bite.